Welcome into the latest episode of Mac and Mose. Andy McNamara, joined as always by the editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com, Rob Mosley. Champion Rob Mosley from the women's cross-country meet in Terre Haute. Before we get into football, I mean, this was a great weekend for Oregon in general, and you had a chance to see some of it firsthand.
Yeah, I got to go back east to the Midwest to Indiana to watch what I thought I was going to be covering Edward Cheserek's bid for history to win his 16th individual NCAA title, fourth cross-country title. He finished third. It was really cold weather that he struggled a little with, and he had a hamstring he was dealing with. But that was mitigated by the fact that the women, who are number 12 in the country, go all the way to the top of the podium, win an NCAA title, their fourth. Previously, the lowest ranked team to ever win an NCAA title in the team race was fourth, and the number 12 Ducks go in there and win the whole thing. It was really dramatic. It was really impressive. And a Eugene kid, Maggie Schmadek, Sheldon High grad, along with as Justin Herbert is Oregon's fifth final score, and she outkicked Michigan's fifth and final score and beat her by 1/10 of a second to give Oregon a 1-point win in the team race over Michigan. It doesn't get, stories don't get cooler than that to tell. So as hard as it was to be sitting in the Indy airport watching the fourth quarter of the football game, and as fun as it would have been to be with you guys and celebrating that, it was a real treasure to be with the girls watching them celebrate a title.
Yeah, I would say if you haven't had a chance to read that story about Maggie and that fifth place finish, you should definitely check it out. Compelling stuff. Yeah, it was, there were a lot of jokes flying around after the game at Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Do I get to go to Corvallis?
Rob Mosley's never invited back, yada, yada, yada. Jeff Locke even put in his 2 cents. He was convinced that your mojo somehow, dethroned Cheserek and made him finish third. But no, it was the game, the setting. I mean, I love going there. It's such a great atmosphere. It's a beautiful scene at Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Yeah.
The fans are passionate. It was a gorgeous day. It was an early kick at noon local time. And, you could tell, I mean, the teams, once the game got going, there was some energy in there. And, the defense for Oregon made some plays early. It wasn't a cement wall by any stretch. Utah was still able to move the ball a little bit, and they did get out to an early lead, but 7-3 at halftime, nobody really saw that coming. And I think they were able, defensively anyway, Oregon was able to take what they did in that first half, and we've talked about it at length, just how thin they are right now. Whether it's injury, whether it's suspension, whether it's guys that started the season on the team that are no longer on the team. I mean, it's a small group at this point, and they really did a nice job. I assume you had a chance to watch.
Absolutely, yeah.
the replay.
I was watching the replay Sunday night, but I was watching it live, on my phone as we're busing from Terre Haute to Indy, and then when we get to Indy, watching it in the hotel where the team was showering, getting cleaned up after the race, and then in the airport. Hats off to guys like TJ Daniel and Henry Mondu moving inside to tackle and doing some yeoman's work there on the inside. As I'm watching the defensive performance in fits and starts Saturday whenever I could, all I could think about, the last practice I saw last week before we left for Terre Haute was Tuesday. And that was a scrappy practice. There were a few scuffles for the first time in a couple of months. And it was like, okay, what does this mean? Is this a discipline issue? Does this reflect some of the penalty problems Oregon has had? But it seemed more like this team is just salty and tired of losing and ready to just come out swinging and put up a fight. And so I just couldn't. I kept harking back to that practice Tuesday, which Mark Helfrich acknowledged publicly afterward was really intense. He said kind of vaguely, we've challenged them in a few different ways. But I kept, again, coming back to that day like, okay, this team has fight left in it, and it's sick of the way things have been going. And yeah, you would have liked to see it 3 weeks earlier, maybe, but they drew a line in the sand, I think, last week and said, hey, we're going to go down swinging if we're going down.
They played, from a discipline standpoint in this game, Charles Nelson was ejected for a targeting penalty. If you're a Utah fan, it's targeting. If you're an Oregon fan, that's not targeting. It was.
I watched it last night. I thought it was targeting. I thought it was a fair call.
It was.
Was it malicious on his part? I don't think so. But
I don't think it was. I don't think it was a dirty play. But the letter of the law, it is hard to dispute. The unfortunate thing about it was completely unnecessary because I believe it was Herbert was running outside and was well past that block. It was not a block that was going to add yards for Oregon on the play. But that said, overall, penalty-wise, the Ducks did a great job in this one. They were much more disciplined, and they needed to be. This was a really good Utah team, ranked number 11 in the AP. The only ranking that really matters is the College Football Playoff, where they were 12, but still number 12 in the country on the road. They're able to take that encouraging start at the beginning of the game, go into halftime down 7-3. Utah comes out in the second half. They extend their lead, but then all of a sudden Justin Herbert starts to go to work, and it was phenomenal. 4 touchdowns he accounted for in the second half, 3 passing, 1 rushing. The rushing one is kind of a bonus because Royce Freeman, I'm convinced, scored on the previous play. They did not review it, and then the Ducks ran one more play. Royce then fakes the dive over the top, and Herbert is able to go around on the outside and score. But still, setting up the drama at the end. I mean, this team, you could tell at the end of the game, as Charles Nelson comes running out onto the field, there are guys on this team that played for the Pac-12 championship in Levi Stadium a couple years ago, went to the national championship, won a Rose Bowl. I mean, these are guys that know how to win and know that they're good. Yeah. And I think I saw that at the end of this game. It was almost like a switch went on, oh yeah, that's right. We're actually, we can play. Yeah. And I think it was really, it's been a rough season. It was just the 4th win, but to beat a top 25 team and feel like the Oregon Ducks again, I think that really, that was the feeling that we came away with after this one.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of hitting a switch, I mean, watching Royce Freeman was really impressive. It felt like, old-time Royce Freeman. I know, the TV analyst made that comment. I'm sure it felt like that from the press box. But just times when he would hit a hole with a sense of purpose and turn what could have been a 3 or 4 yard run into an 8 yard run or a 10 yard run. A couple times he hit the sideline and you saw that burst. I mean, it looks like he felt healthy for the first time in a while. Big kudos to Mark Helfrich, Matt Lubick in the play calling. I think all eyes were on Oregon's young offensive line against that Sac Lake City defensive front from Utah. I think they have 3 sacks that they finished with. They did such a great job getting the ball out to the perimeter, getting the ball out of Herbert's hands quickly with the screen game, working it to the tight ends. Freeman catches 8 passes. Really getting the ball out quick, taking the pressure off that offensive line. And then as the game wore on, Utah starts to anticipate some of that stuff. You saw a tunnel screen to Darren Carrington late in the game that was snuffed out real quick because they had adjusted. But then what happens? Herbert does a little more drop back stuff on some of those pass plays late in the game. Some of the run stuff, Oregon's base run packages with Freeman start to be open a little bit better. So I really thought from an offensive, chess match point of view that the coaches did a great job for this team.
Hunter Dimick for Utah had a couple sacks in this one early, 2 of their 3. But yeah, I agree. Moving Herbert around in the pocket, he's so good at keeping his eyes downfield, and he's just so fluid back there. It doesn't matter if they move him right or move him left and give him some space. And picking out so many different receivers in this one. Royce Freeman, a ton of grabs out of the backfield. Johnny Munt had 5 catches. Evan Bayless had 3, none bigger than the big one over the middle toward the end of this one on that final game-winning touchdown drive where he absolutely trucked the defender who was actually whistled for targeting at the time. They picked up the flag after review, but I have to think if Bayless goes down there, it probably is targeting. The fact that he won that battle, it's like, okay, you're good. Just the ability, and then finding Carrington. Jaylen Brown made a couple of great grabs in this one to really extend things. Alex Afadale, and this wasn't a garbage time catch for Afadale. Redshirt freshman, his first career grab, and it comes in a very crucial situation in the second half. Yeah,
I mean, the 2 tight ends packages, I mean, again, when you're taking your hat off to the offensive coaching staff, the adjustment they've made over the last month to go base 2 tight ends, and then without having Pharaoh Brown, to still have Evan Bayless and Johnny Munt produce at the level they did in this game. You're going to have to weather some things over the course of the season, and Lord knows this team has had to try to do that. But that's really worked out. Alex Afadale, had a big time block too on at least I think 1 Freeman run, and then Dylan Mitchell, in that role as the primary return man. I mean the the fair catch situation jumps out that Utah was able to jump on and capitalize, and kind of a goofy, strangely officiated play. But I mean, his big long punt return was a huge key in this game. And if we're talking about timeliness, that turnover forced by the defense in the red zone, that's the sort of play that we've counted on defensively the last decade or so. I mean, this has never been, constant 3-and-out defense. It's there's always been some give and take a little bit defensively, but you counted on some timely turnovers to swing momentum from this Oregon defense, and that just hasn't happened much this season. So it happened on a big stage in a big game, and really had a huge, on a one-score, one-possession game, made a huge difference.
Wayne Tay Kirby gets the fumble recovery. It's just the second fumble in 11 games recovered by Oregon.
That's amazing.
And some of that is, if you talk to the real stat heads that crunch numbers and look at all the different things that aren't the obvious stats that fans sort through, it's just, so much of that is just luck.
Yeah.
And for Oregon, that's like betting on black on the roulette wheel and spinning it 100 times and it only goes black like 20 times.
Speaking of luck, the late Freeman fumble that bounces right to Darren Carrington, you need some plays to go your own way too.
Exactly. So that's one of the great things about football: the ball, the shape of it, the balances it takes, and that certainly was a big play in this one. And then we can't end this without talking a little bit more about that final play. Herbert leads him down the field. I thought the run that he made on third down to get the first down, I know he burned a bunch of clock in a pretty dicey situation with not much time left, but that at least gave them a fresh set of downs and guaranteed Oregon would have 3, maybe 4 shots at the end zone on a short field, as long as they were able to get the ball out of his hand quickly. And it was Mariota-esque. I know people don't want to compare the two, but the way that he keeps his eyes downfield, he scrambles, he almost trips, and he's able to sort of sneak out and then use his speed to get to the pylon. And that was a case where he did not slide.
Right.
He dove for the first down and was able to get out of bounds and set things up. They go to Jaylen Brown on the first shot. It's not there, but the pass that he throws to Carrington. Now, Carrington deserves all the credit in the world for being able to get the feet down, but it couldn't have been a more perfect ball. I mean, it's really, to be able to thread it in there by the defender and essentially hit him right in the breadbasket. I mean, it was an absolute dime.
Who calls a back corner fade in that situation? You couldn't help but wonder about back to that Colorado game.
Yeah.
Similar play call, different distance, obviously, so a different kind of throw. But that's when you make that play call against Colorado, that's kind of what you're counting on. Just throw a ball where you hope only Carrington can get it, and then count on your best playmaking receiver, your most experienced playmaking receiver to make a play, which he did. We can only wonder, if that play gets executed against Colorado, how this team's fortunes might have changed. But that's why you call a play like that. You have playmakers. You got a guy that you think can make a throw because they've done it a ton of times in practice, and then it works out. It was an amazing throw, but Darren's body control too. Not to be overlooked. I mean, he made a hell of a play. And, it was great to see these guys get to experience some success because they have been working hard. I mean, it's hard to show up to practice, particularly on those Tuesdays and Wednesdays when they're in full pads and they're hitting, and you've been losing, and some guys are starting to wonder if it's worth it. And then so to get the outcome they got, to be able to celebrate that victory, a big time upset, they don't want to be the team that's playing spoiler, but that's the nature of the beast, and so you kind of take whatever motivation is available to you, and so to be able to come through and do that. I'm sure, this week of practice is going to have a little bit of a different vibe. It would have anyway because of the Civil War, but, a little more sense of belief that, this team can have some success.
From a confidence standpoint, I think certainly. That last play, too, if you watched it on Pac-12 Network, Yogi Roth was the analyst, and he called it. He's like, you got to go to your best. You've got, one-on-one coverage on the outside, your best receiver. Go there, and it worked out for Oregon. And then I'm really surprised that Mark Helfrich didn't get asked about this in the press conference. But I had a couple people text me after the game, and were just kind of surprised and thought it was a great move to just take a knee on the extra point and not risk any any issues where especially the way that game was going, with the two teams really just trading haymakers in that fourth quarter, and the crazy fair catch punt return play, and there were just some other things. So to take a knee there, you don't want to risk anything. And
we've seen him go for 2, we've seen him go for 1, and now we've seen him go for 0.
Go for 0, and but I think it was the right call, and I'm definitely surprised nobody asked about that in the post-game press conference. But the final margin is 2 points. Ducks are able to squib it on the kickoff, and they did a good job of covering, knowing that Utah would try to lateral it down the field. But from a confidence standpoint, going into Civil War week, this would have been the team would have been focused regardless, because it's the Beavers and it'll be their last game of the season. But just to have that win, that confidence going into practice today, I think as we tape this on a Monday, I think it's gonna be big.
Yeah, all I can tell you is sitting on the floor of the Indy airport by the first outlet I could find, watching it on my phone with headphones in, it was pretty cool. And I'm sure there's a lot of people sitting around me wondering what the heck I was raising my arms in the air and screaming about. But really happy for those guys, and we'll see if they can. Now you got to turn that into momentum. You got to turn that into positive momentum, and you can't celebrate too long, obviously, because this is going to be a big game, and you know the Beavers would like nothing better after getting a win themselves than to put an exclamation point on their season by beating the Ducks finally.
We'll talk about that one later on this week, preview the 120th edition of the Civil War. Oregon comes into this one having won the last 8 in a row. Until then, if you have questions for us, you can get to us on Twitter. I'm at McNamara UO. He is at Duck Football. We'll see you.